Hello and happy Monday. On this Monday, we have three questions from the same person. And so part of it was because when I first read the questions, which typically I don't do, I just happened to have gone through the list of questions to pick out a few. I noticed that these questions came from the same person. So I decided those are the questions that I was going to answer today. And these questions come from Claude. And so I really thought that these are really great questions. So we'll start with the first question, which I really think is about cultural transformation. So the question reads, what are the most effective methods to measure and shift organizational culture in a distribution workforce, particularly when trying to maintain innovation while improving organizational excellence? Whoa, a mouthful of a question. But here's what I think when I think about this question. Most leaders get this wrong when they think about cultural change. They focus on value posters instead of daily behaviors. Culture isn't what you say, it's what you reward and what you tolerate. And I think that's the important piece, what you tolerate. Too many times we hear people, especially in the line of work that I'm in and the organizations that I go in and out of, I hear about how they're very toxic people in the organization and that we need to change the culture, but we're rewarding that toxic behavior. Breakthroughs don't happen just in a vacuum. You got to stop talking about culture as if it's an abstract. Instead, you've got to identify minimum 3 specific behaviors that drive your business results. So, for example, if you're looking for innovation, as Claude has asked in this question, don't just say be innovative. Measure how many ideas people share and how quickly the team can test and adopt those ideas. Measure whether or not the managers actually implement the employees' suggestions. And when they do, what are the outcomes of that? That is how you're able to track to see if your company is truly being innovative. So, in the distribution world, the reality of it, your culture now lives in messaging, right? We live in the Slack world, we live in the Zoom world, we live in how quickly people can respond to each other. And instead of focusing on that, what we need to start doing is we need to create rituals, daily rituals, maybe even on the digital space, because that's the reality we live in, right? And so, what does that look like? We need to start having people share their learnings on those spaces, even having coffee chats where there might be hierarchy in the room or there might not, but it doesn't really matter. The point is that it allows people to talk about what they've learned, what innovations, if that's what you are trying to get to happen, a space where people can have those conversations. Now, I am not suggesting that all of these things must only happen in our new work reality of a virtual world. I'm saying that we live in a virtual world. So instead of fighting against it, how do we use it to make our lives better? And that's one. The bottom line is culture changes happen in micro moments, not at an annual retreat, not at a quarterly event. These changes happen daily. You've got to be able to focus on what are the behaviors that are important in our culture and how do we change that culture to fit those behaviors and not just talk about it. And so I'm not suggesting you don't have annual retreats or you don't have quarterly workshops. I'm saying that once you've had those and you had the opportunity to sort of set those standards, the real work begins in the daily. That's where everything happens. So I hope that answers that particular question. The next question that Claude had was, when implementing large-scale transformation initiatives across multiple business units, what are the key success factors that differentiate organizations that can achieve and sustain those changes instead of having them revert to the old patterns? So basically, mouthful, change management at scale is really what Claude is asking about here. I'm going to tell you that 90% of change initiatives fail because organizations treat change management like a project instead of building change capability into their DNA. I have a wonderful colleague. Her company is called Positive Delta, and she has been in the change management space for many, many, many years. And the big thing that my colleague will say, she's the CEO of Positive Delta, Adrienne Guerrero, and Adrienne will say that the secret sauce is not about managing the change, but building a change muscle. It is really about mindset, and that companies thriving today are not the ones that execute on one perfect transformation. They're the ones that get really good at changing continuously, and they're building those change muscles, and they do something that she calls creating a change mindset. And so I'm going to take a little bit of her work and share. And again, if you are interested in change management, if you're interested in building an organization that truly is change ready, I highly recommend that you use her service in particular. And so what she does is she calls something that it's called changes in waves. And instead of one massive rollout, do a 30, 60, 90 cycle, she says pick early adopters first, not most of your senior people, but most of your influential people. So that may not be your senior leadership. She says pick the people that you know have the biggest influence within an organization, and really the ones that are early adopters, right? And let them experiment with their teams, with the change. Let them become your internal evangelists of change. The key insight here is that resistance isn't about people being difficult. It's about people not seeing what's in it for them. I'm going to repeat that for the people in the back. Resistance is not about people being difficult. It's about people not seeing the what's in it for them. And that is something that in all of Adrienne's work, she really emphasizes. And I love that because she's absolutely right. What kills change, honestly, truly kills change, is changing too many things at once and not celebrating those small wins as you go. People need to feel momentum, not overwhelmed. They need to be able to have a change mindset. And so the focus is on how do you build that, again, what Adrienne calls the change muscle. So I hope, Claude, that answers your question in a different way than you've heard from other change experts. So Claude's last question is, what is the most effective approach to redesigning performance management systems that drive both individual growth, business results, while maintaining high employee engagement in a hybrid work environment? Claude, I feel like you've got a lot of things going on in your company. So here's what I would say to you. Get rid of annual performance reviews. Yes, I've said the controversial thing that I say all the time. They are dead. They are useless. They don't help you. Most organizations don't know how to replace them, so they continue to use them. But now I'm going to tell you exactly how to replace them. And I'm going to say to you that this model that I'm going to share with you, I want you to think of it like Netflix, right? Not network television, not the major three, ABC, NBC, CBS. Those are the past. I want you to think more of a streaming sort of idea. So instead of an annual performance review, I want you to create a continuous performance conversation. Monthly check-ins asking what's blocking you? What do you need support with? What should we adjust? Part of the problems with annual reviews is that they're focused on looking at the past and they're not forward focusing. When you do monthly check-ins, you are now looking forward. Now, here's the controversial piece, because you'll say, oh, people have told us to do this all the time. Great. What I would suggest doing, honestly, are daily check-ins if you happen to be in an organization where you see people every day. It can happen in the morning and in the evening, where you stop by someone's office and you ask them, what is the priority for them today? How can you support them? And also have one question around them personally. That way they feel that you see them and hear them. Now, if you're in a situation where you're in a hybrid sort of where you're working virtually and sometimes you're coming in and you're not necessarily seeing your people all the time, or the people you manage are in another facility than you are, then you do want to have weekly check-ins. And listen, we say this and then people try to make these really extraordinary sort of, I need to have a long conversation. It can be a very short conversation. And it can be as simple as, what are your priorities for this week? What would make this week a successful week for you if you got X accomplished, right? How can I support you this week? And then one personal thing. And then at the end of the week, you simply ask, were you able to accomplish X? Did I give you everything that you needed? And then whatever the check-in question is. This is a system that we actually teach. We don't teach it in a vacuum like, oh, we think these are best practices. These are actually best practices that I personally used when I was in a corporate environment, that I used with my team and found success with. I've shared with other teams they found success with. So this isn't something that's like, oh, it's just, from a textbook. These are real, tangible, successful things that you can do that can effectively redesign your performance management. And you've asked specifically about systems. So here's how, when we're looking at systems, you want to measure output and not activities. Don't track how many hours someone's online. Don't track whether or not, they are surfing the web. That is irrelevant. What's the word I'm using? So it's live, but it's not relevant. What you want to track is whether or not they're moving the business forward. What are the things, what are the activities that I need to do to move the business forward? Don't track and micromanage things that you think will show that I'm working, because I could be working, but not necessarily moving the business forward. We need to focus on tracking what will move the business forward. We also need to give people flexibility in how they work, but be crystal clear with them with what success looks like. Here's how I view it. And this is a little bit of taking from Simon Sinek, which is the leader's responsible for the why. The team is responsible for the how. It is not the leader's purview to be concerned on the how. You don't need to worry about how it gets done. That's not important. You need to be focused on the outcome, the bigger picture as a leader. And so tracking these little insignificant micromanaged day-to-day activities does not get you towards the business results. You need to focus on what's moving us forward to get to our business goal. What does success look like? And not focus on how the person is doing. Are they calling 6 people today? Are they calling? No, the bottom line is, what's my overall goal? If I'm a salesperson and I need to close 20 accounts, and I need to make sure that I'm also maintaining relationships with 100 accounts, as an example, then my focus as a sales manager is not counting how many calls you made, but are your activities truly moving the business forward? Do you have the right outcomes? Are you actually closing business? Are you actually connecting with the clients? That's what's most important, not tracking how many phone calls you made, as an example. When we engage people with actually connecting them, performance and engagement are not separate. That's why you notice in the questions that I gave you, there's one question out of the three, because I think three is the magic number here, that is about a personal nature. When people understand how their work connects to the bigger picture, and when they have autonomy over their approach, and they're able to grow and build new skills, their performance gets better, and they feel more engaged. And they see that you see them, and that increases their engagement. So performance and engagement truly are not separate concepts. They are one and the same. And that's how you increase your performance and your engagement. And if you're buying systems, like an actual software system to track performance, you need to have a system that is not tracking the minutia, but it's actually tracking outcomes. And if you're not buying a performance system and you're doing it the old-fashioned way, as I like to do it, then you need to be crystal clear on what the success look like, and crystal clear on how you are tracking success. That it's more about, are these activities moving the business forward? Those are the activities that I'm planning on tracking. I'm not tracking busy work. And that's really important, because now people feel like they get the bigger picture, they're connected, they have autonomy over their own approach, and they have an ability to learn a new skill, and they feel like you trust them. Their performance is going to improve and their engagement is going to improve. Well, Claude, that was a mouthful from me. I hope those answers make sense to the questions that you have. And to everyone else, I will see you next time, next Monday, with a brand new set of